USC takes their undefeated record to the unfriendly confines of Rice-Eccles Stadium to take on the 4-2 Utah Utes. USC will be an underdog for the first time this season. Will they quiet the doubters and walk away with a win, or will they get handed their first loss of the 2022 season? We'll talk about all of that and more on this week's Trojan Game Preview. Hey guys, welcome into this week's game preview. Before the season started, this is the game everyone had circled. This is by far the biggest test that USC has faced to this point. Just the Utah team by itself is going to be a real challenge, not even adding on the insane crowd noise. This is a blackout game for Utah. They are also wearing special helmets to honor Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe, who of course tragically passed away. So this is going to be a very emotional and very intense atmosphere on Saturday night. USC has to come in prepared on their absolute A game from the jump. Alright guys, so let's get into this game preview, and as always, let's start with the head coach of these Utah Utes. Utah's head coach is of course Kyle Whittingham. He has been the Utah head coach since 2005, but has actually been on staff there at Utah since 1994 in various roles. He is one of the more accomplished coaches in all of college football. He's also one of the most respected coaches in the country as well. He has a purely defensive background, and when I tell you he is one of the more stubborn coaches in terms of defensive philosophy, that is a definite understatement. He runs man coverage on the outside, and he doesn't care who he is lining up against. We all remember the Matt Fink game in 2019, where Fink came in and just threw jump ball after jump ball, and USC's receivers were absolutely destroying the Utah DBs, and he just refused to stop playing man. And that will be a very intriguing talking point going into this game, because Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the Pac-12 when throwing against man coverage. However, he is also the worst quarterback when throwing against zone coverage. This game will really test how set in his ways he really is. Alright guys, so let's transition over and let's meet this Utah offense. Now usually when we talk about Utah, the defense is the strength of the team, but this year that is not the case at all. This Utah offense is one of the more dynamic ones in the entire Pac-12. This Utes offense is led by junior quarterback Cam Rising. Now before the season started, I thought that Cam should be considered a legitimate Heisman contender. Now he hasn't necessarily played up to that level, but he has been playing some excellent ball so far this season. He comes into this game having thrown for 1,440 yards with 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He is also a threat on the ground. He comes into this game with 248 yards and 3 scores to his name. He's a very quick processor of information. When he decides to pull it and run, he does it so quickly, it can really catch you off guard if you aren't looking for it. And when I tell you he's fast, I mean he's legitimate fast, not just quarterback fast. He can break tackles, he can evade sacks. Someone on the USC defense will have to spy him because he will kill you if you just let him scramble around. He doesn't have many weaknesses, but if I were to point one out, I would say that when you take away that quarterback run and turn him into a pure passer, he can make some bad decisions and put the ball in harm's way, as we saw last week in the UCLA game. But like I said before, he really doesn't have that many weaknesses. He throws with great touch and anticipation. He has a strong enough arm to make all the throws. He can extend plays and throw off platform across his body for an absolute strike downfield. You aren't going to find a tougher quarterback in the country, and he's just a great leader for that Utah team. He's just the real deal, guys, and he absolutely loves throwing to his backs and tight ends. That's evident when you look at their top receivers. Only one of the top 4 pass catchers for Utah is a wideout. Now moving to those pass catchers, it's definitely worth noting that superstar tight end Brant Kuithe is out for the year, which is a huge deal. He's a phenomenal player, so the Trojans really catch a break there. However, their number 2 tight end would be a starter at probably 95% of all schools in the country, maybe more. Dalton Kincaid is a legit star. The 6'4", 240-pound senior is a complete tight end if there ever was one. He already has 5 touchdown receptions on the year. He's great in the run game as a blocker. He has insane hands as a receiver. He has really good speed. He makes plays on jump balls. This guy really does it all. He is the number 1 target for this USC defense to try and shut down. Now how they go about doing that will be really interesting. Is Kalen Bullock going to cover him? He's got the height and athleticism, but is lacking the strength to deal with Kincaid. It could be Eric Gentry or Raylan Goforth. I really don't know who they're going to put on him. Now, moving to the Utah receiving core, this is the weakness of the Utah offense for sure. No one here really scares you the way that Kincaid does. Devon Vele is the leader in this wide receiver room. He's a 6'5", 205-pound sophomore who comes into this game with 27 catches for 356 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, obviously, anytime you see a wide receiver with that height, it stands out to you, and he uses his height really well. He's a really good contested catch guy. He's not going to scare you with his speed, but you have to have someone who can really leap covering him. Now, moving to their running game, they are led by senior running back Tavion Thomas. Now, Tavion has had a really difficult start to his season. He lost his aunt who raised him days before the Arizona State game. And head coach Kyle Whittingham has said that he's still not in shape, and he has also implied that he hasn't been as consistent as he would like. Although he just had a season high in carries against UCLA, so it's safe to assume he's back to at least close to 100%. And with regards to the Utah running game, I know we have heard this all week, that this is where the game will be won or lost. And we all watch the games, we all know it. USC's run defense has to be better. No way around it, they just have to play better. While there are some limitations on the interior of USC's defensive line, that still doesn't excuse the edge guys getting out of their gaps. Now, moving to this Utah offensive line, it's a good mix of veteran players and some young guys as well. They don't grade out very well in the run game, however. By PFF's grading, they are the 7th best run blocking O-line in the conference. I think that the USC edge defenders can have success against this offensive line. Specifically talking about Corey Foreman, I think his speed could be a good asset in this game. Let's hope he has some production. I worry very much about the interior of this defensive line. I really hope Shane Lee is healthy enough to play in this game. He was built for this kind of game and going up against this kind of offense. If he can play, I really feel like he's going to have a huge game on Saturday night. Now, looking at some interesting numbers, Utah sports the 27th rank in rush offense, and USC has the 82nd rank in run defense. So obviously, strength and weakness there, USC is going to need to play better in this one. Utah is ranked 19th in third down percentage, and they're ranked 51st in passing offense. I definitely thought that one would be higher. Alright, so let's move over to the other side of the ball and meet this Utah defense. Now, traditionally, the Utah defense is head and shoulders the strength of their team, but like I mentioned earlier, that is not the case this season. Especially when we take a look at that front seven. We saw last week when they got absolutely mauled by UCLA. They lost a ton of production from last year's team, and the front seven this year is very young and unproven. In fact, all 4 starters on their defensive line are sophomores. USC's offensive line should have the advantage in this game, at least on paper. Defensive end Van Fillinger leads this Utah defense with 3.5 sacks. Utah only has 11 sacks on the entire year, so getting to the quarterback is not a strong point for them. Another interesting note is that the 2 leading tacklers on this defense are actually defensive backs. The leading tackler at the linebacker spot is 6 foot, 227-pound sophomore Kareem Reed. He comes into this game with 35 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and an interception. PFF has Reed as the number 3 overall linebacker in the Pac-12 at this point in the season. Now moving over to the Utah secondary, this is where they are as strong as they come. This is one of the better secondaries in the entire country. Cole Bishop is one of the hardest hitters in the entire country, especially from the safety spot. He's a 6'2", 205-pound sophomore, and he's just a playmaker. He flies around the field and really causes havoc. But the real star of not just this Utah defense, but the entire team is sophomore corner Clark Phillips. I personally believe he's the best corner in the entire country. He has everything you would want in a number 1 corner. He has elite ball skills, elite anticipation. He reads the game so well. He's an explosive athlete. He already has 5 interceptions on the year, including 2 pick sixes. He's an absolute stud. Jordan Addison against Clark Phillips is going to be absolute must-see TV. Now overall, I do give the advantage to the USC offense over the Utah defense, but it's going to be a real challenge for sure. Now some interesting numbers for the Utah defense. They rank 31st in third down defense, 58th in rush defense, and they're 38th in red zone defense. Now it's time for my keys to the game, and the first one I have for the USC offense is take a run-first approach. Now in the last few weeks, USC has really shown an ability to have a dominant run game, and Utah has shown a lot of vulnerability in that front seven. I would really love to see Lincoln Riley come out and pound him early, and then take those deep shots later in the game. My second offensive key is score early and take the crowd out of the game. As I mentioned earlier, this crowd is going to be totally insane from start to finish. So score early, score often, and take them out of it from the jump. And my third offensive key is going to piggyback from the first one, and it's take your shots. You have to challenge this Utah defense vertically, and I trust our receivers to get open downfield and make plays. Now moving to the defensive side of the ball, my first key is take away Kincaid. He's the best player on their offense, he's the most dynamic player on their offense. Do whatever you can to shut him down, make Cam Rising go somewhere else with the ball. My second key is sacks and interceptions. The USC defense leads the nation in sacks with 24, and they're top 5 in interceptions with 12. Go out there and play aggressive and make those big time game changing plays. And my last key for the defense is 4 full quarters. We've seen this defense play horrible in the first half and come out in the second half and absolutely shut down the opponent. Let's not wait until the third quarter this time. Come out playing strong and take them out of this game early. Alright guys, so those are my keys to the game. Now just some final thoughts. When you look around college football, some of the national media people, they're just writing off USC in this one. USC is an underdog, and they're going into one of the most hostile environments in the entire country. This is really going to test USC's mental strength and the overall heart of this team. I believe in Lincoln Riley to give this team the right message and attitude heading into this one. My score prediction is USC 31, Utah 28. Make sure to let me know your score predictions down in the comments. That'll do it for this game preview. Thank you all so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all on Monday when we recap this game. Fight on!